Most people misunderstand avoidant attachment because they judge it using the rules of emotionally expressive people. They expect affection to look warm, direct, and obvious. But avoidant people rarely reveal their emotional reality in ways others can easily recognize. In fact, many of the behaviors that seem cold or confusing are often signs of intense internal conflict. When an avoidant begins falling for someone, their actions can become contradictory. They may create distance, become unusually observant, or seem to disappear right after moments of connection. These behaviors are often mistaken as disinterest, when in many cases they are the opposite. The first sign is they begin remembering small details about you. This matters because avoidants often conserve emotional energy. They usually do not invest deep mental focus into people unless something about that person has become significant. If they remember the story you casually mentioned weeks ago, notice changes in your mood before you speak, or bring up tiny preferences you forgot you shared, that attention means something. They are studying emotional safety. They may not compliment you directly, but their memory reveals where their focus lies. The second sign is they create private routines with you. Human attachment is built through repetition. Avoidants may resist labels and emotional declarations, but they unconsciously build rituals when someone matters. Maybe they always message at the same late hour, share certain songs, check on you after specific events, or create inside jokes that only the two of you understand. These patterns are not accidental. Routines create controlled closeness. For someone who fears emotional engulfment, predictable connection feels safer than intense emotional exposure. The third sign is they pull away right after vulnerability. This confuses many people because it appears as rejection. In reality, avoidants often retreat after emotional closeness because connection activates threat. The moment they feel seen, cared for, or emotionally exposed, their nervous system interprets it as danger. They may have opened up, shared something personal, laughed more than usual, or spent meaningful time with you. Then suddenly, they go quiet. That withdrawal is not always loss of interest. Often it is emotional regulation. They are trying to regain control over feelings that become stronger than they expected. The fourth sign is they start letting you into spaces they protect from everyone else. Avoidants guard territory, not just physical space, but psychological space. This can be their routines, thoughts, downtime, or personal environment. If they invite you into those hidden areas, it is a powerful shift. They may ask your opinion on decisions, allow you into their daily life, or tell you things they normally keep private. These actions signal trust. Trust is not easily given by someone who equates dependence with vulnerability. The fifth sign is they become strangely protective, even while acting detached. This often surprises people. Avoidants may not speak romantically, but they notice threats. If someone disrespects you, if you are hurt, if something affects your well-being, they often react faster than expected. The key is they may hide the emotional reason behind logical explanations. They might say they are just being practical or just helping, but the speed of their response reveals emotional investment. Protection is one of the quiet ways attachment surfaces before they can admit feelings to themselves. The sixth sign is they test our consistency. This is one of the least understood behaviors. Avoidants often expect closeness to become unsafe. Because of that, they may create subtle distance to observe your reaction. They may delay replies, act cooler, or become less available. This is not always manipulation. It is often fear-based testing. They are asking a silent question. Will this person become controlling, angry, needy, or unpredictable when I pull back? If you remain calm and emotionally stable, you become safer in their mind. Emotional safety is what allows attachment to deepen. The seventh sign is they keep coming back. This is perhaps the strongest indicator. An avoidant who feels nothing usually drifts away and stays away. But when they are emotionally attached, they return. After space, after silence, after confusion, they reconnect. Sometimes they do it awkwardly. They may act like nothing happened. They may reach out with something random or trivial. That is not meaningless. Returning is significant because it means the emotional bond remained active even during their withdrawal. Their distance did not erase the connection. It amplified their awareness of it. The central mistake people make is assuming love must look emotionally polished. It does not. Especially with avoidance. Their feelings may appear in contradictions. Distance paired with attention, silence paired with observation, independence paired with repeated return. This is why surface behavior can be misleading. The avoidant is often fighting two forces at once: desire for connection and fear of dependency. The result is behavior that seems inconsistent from the outside but makes perfect sense internally. The deeper truth is that avoidants often show love through access, consistency, and return. They may never say exactly what you hope to hear in the timeline you expect, but their behavior reveals the emotional tension. If they notice everything, protect your well-being, create rituals, allow you into guarded spaces, retreat after closeness, test your stability, and continue returning, those are not random acts. Those are signs their emotional walls are moving. Slowly, carefully, and often without their own awareness. Avoidants rarely show affection in ways most people expect. They are not usually the type to openly express feelings through constant reassurance, grand romantic gestures, or frequent emotional conversations. Because of this, many people assume they are distant, uninterested, or emotionally unavailable. But with avoidance, feelings often reveal themselves through behavior rather than words. What they do quietly often says far more than anything they could ever comfortably say out loud. An avoidant may never be the first to declare deep feelings, but they will often communicate attachment through subtle actions. They may remember the smallest details about you, even things you said casually and forgot yourself. They may notice changes in your mood, habits, or tone before anyone else does. This level of attention is not random. Avoidants are selective with emotional investment. If they are paying close attention, it usually means that person matters more than they are willing to admit. Their affection often appears in consistency. They may text at odd times but still check in regularly. They may not say they miss you, yet they find reasons to reach out. Sometimes the message itself seems insignificant, but the act of returning matters. For someone who values distance and emotional self-protection, repeatedly choosing contact is meaningful. It shows that despite their instinct to keep space, something continues pulling them back toward you. Another way avoidants show affection is through access. They are usually private people who protect their routines, emotions, and personal space. When they start inviting someone into those hidden areas, it is a sign of trust. This may mean sharing thoughts they rarely tell others, allowing you into their home, or including you in parts of life they normally keep separate. These moments may seem small, but for an avoidant, they represent emotional movement. What makes avoidance difficult to understand is that affection can also come with distance. They may withdraw after meaningful conversations or disappear after moments of closeness. This often confuses people who assume the connection was not real. But in many cases, that retreat happens because the closeness itself felt intense. Their emotions became stronger than they were prepared for, and distance becomes their way of regaining control. This is why actions matter more than declarations. Avoidants may struggle to say what they feel, but their patterns often reveal it. They show affection in quiet attention, repeated return, protective behavior, and the willingness to let someone closer than anyone else. Their love is often hidden beneath caution, but it is there in everything they consistently choose to do. Distance is often misunderstood, especially when dealing with someone who has avoidant patterns. Many people assume that when someone pulls away, becomes quiet, or creates space, it means they no longer care. But for avoidance, distance is not always a sign of disinterest. In many cases, it is a sign that emotions have become intense enough to trigger internal conflict. What looks like detachment from the outside can actually be someone struggling with feelings they do not know how to manage. Avoidants often experience closeness as both comforting and threatening. They may deeply enjoy being around someone, feel safe during moments of connection, and genuinely want the relationship to grow. But as that emotional bond becomes stronger, another reaction begins. Their instinct for independence starts competing with their attachment. This creates emotional tension. They feel drawn to the person, yet the increasing intimacy activates fear. The result is often distance, not because they want less connection, but because they are trying to handle how much the connection is affecting them. This is why avoidance may pull away right after moments that felt meaningful. A deep conversation, a vulnerable confession, shared laughter, or emotional closeness can suddenly be followed by silence. To the other person, it can feel confusing or even painful. It seems like the connection was not real, but often the closeness was very real, and that is exactly why they withdrew. They may need space to process emotions that feel overwhelming. The withdrawal becomes a way to regain emotional control. For avoidants, emotional conflict is often silent. They may not explain why they need distance, because they may not fully understand it themselves. They are not always consciously deciding to step back. Sometimes their nervous system reacts automatically. They may feel the urge to disconnect before they can even put their emotions into words. This can create mixed signals. One day they are engaged, attentive, and present. The next day they seem distant or unavailable. The inconsistency comes from internal conflict, not always from lack of care. Distance can also become a test. An avoidant may step back to observe how the other person responds. They may fear that closeness will lead to pressure, demands, or loss of freedom. By creating space, they watch whether the connection becomes chaotic. If the other person reacts with anger or panic, it confirms their fear. If the person remains emotionally stable, trust can grow. This is why distance should be understood through patterns, not isolated moments. One period of withdrawal does not always mean they have lost interest. If they consistently return, reconnect, and maintain some form of bond, the distance may reflect emotional conflict rather than absence of feeling. With avoidance, stepping back can sometimes mean they care more than they know how to handle. With avoidant personalities, the biggest mistake people make is looking for dramatic signs of affection. They expect obvious declarations, romantic speeches, or large emotional gestures that clearly define someone's feelings. But avoidants rarely operate that way. Their emotional world is usually more controlled, guarded, and subtle. Because of that, small, repeated actions often reveal far more than any grand gesture ever could. The truth is, consistency matters much more than intensity. Avoidants often struggle with direct emotional expression. Saying exactly how they feel can make them uncomfortable because vulnerability can feel unsafe. They may avoid conversations that force emotional clarity, even when they care deeply. That means their feelings often show up in ordinary moments instead of obvious romantic actions. They may send a simple message every day, ask if you got home safely, remember something you mentioned in passing, or quietly help when you need something. These acts may seem small, but they are not random. They are often the most honest form of connection they can comfortably give. What makes these actions meaningful is repetition. A single kind act can happen for many reasons. But when someone consistently shows up in subtle ways over time, that reveals emotional investment. Avoidants are not usually people who give attention freely. Their time, focus, and emotional energy are protected. If they repeatedly direct those things toward one person, it usually means that person has become important to them, even if they never say it directly. This is because avoidants often prefer controlled closeness. Grand gestures require emotional exposure. They are public, intense, and often difficult to reverse. Small actions feel safer because they allow connection without complete vulnerability. An avoidant may never write a dramatic confession, but they may always notice when you are stressed. They may never openly admit they miss you, but they may continue finding reasons to contact you. That quiet consistency often says more than words. Many people overlook these signs because they compare them to more expressive personalities. They may think, if they really cared, they would do something bigger. But with avoidance, the opposite is often true. Large emotional gestures can sometimes happen impulsively, especially in emotionally charged moments. Small, repeated actions require something more important. Ongoing intention. It means the person keeps choosing to remain connected, even while their instinct may be to create distance. That is why patterns are so important. The avoidant who checks in after every difficult day, remembers details no one else notices, or always circles back after space is showing something significant. Their affection may not look dramatic, but it is often hidden inside those repeated choices. For avoidance, love is less about intensity and more about consistent presence. The smallest actions, repeated over time, often carry the deepest meaning. One of the most confusing behaviors in avoidant dynamics is when someone seems deeply connected one moment and distant the next. A conversation feels meaningful, emotions are shared, there is laughter, vulnerability, and genuine closeness, then suddenly they pull away, they become quieter, less available, or emotionally harder to reach. Many people interpret this as rejection. They assume the closeness was not real. But for avoidance, withdrawing right after connection often happens because intimacy itself triggers fear. Avoidant individuals often carry a strong need for emotional independence. Even when they want connection, closeness can activate internal alarms. As intimacy grows, they may begin to feel exposed, dependent, or emotionally vulnerable in ways that feel uncomfortable. This creates conflict. Part of them may want the bond, while another part feels threatened by how important that bond is becoming. The result is often withdrawal. They pull away not because the moment meant nothing, but because it meant more than they were prepared for. This reaction often comes from learned emotional patterns. Many avoidants developed ways of protecting themselves by relying on self-sufficiency. Over time, emotional dependence became associated with loss of control. When a relationship begins to create strong emotional attachment, it can challenge those defenses. The closeness starts to matter, and that matters more than they expected. Instead of moving closer, their instinct may be to create space. Distance becomes a way to regulate emotions that feel too intense. This is why the timing matters. Pulling away after vulnerability is often more revealing than pulling away without context. If someone opens up, shares personal thoughts, spends unusually meaningful time with you, or expresses warmth, and then disappears, that pattern can signal emotional activation. The closeness stirred something powerful. They may need time to process it privately. What appears cold on the outside can actually be the result of feeling too much internally. Avoidants may not even understand why they do this. It is not always a deliberate strategy. Often, the nervous system reacts before conscious thought. They feel the emotional intensity, instinctively create distance to restore balance. This can make them appear inconsistent. One day they are fully engaged, attentive, and emotionally open. The next day they seem detached. The change can feel personal to the other person, but it often reflects the avoidant's internal struggle rather than a sudden change in feelings. This is why a single moment should not be judged in isolation. Withdrawal after closeness can be a protective response to attachment. If they continue returning, re-engaging, and rebuilding contact, the distance may be less about rejection and more about fear. For avoidance, intimacy can awaken both desire and alarm at the same time. Their retreat is sometimes not an escape from you, but an attempt to manage feelings they are not yet comfortable facing. Consistency is one of the clearest signs of real attachment, yet it is often overlooked because people focus too much on words. Promises are easy to make. Emotional declarations can sound convincing in a moment. Someone can say they care, say they miss you, or say they want a future, and still behave in ways that reveal something very different. This is especially true with avoidant personalities. Our internal world is often complicated, and they may struggle to express feelings directly. That is why consistency becomes the hidden language of attachment. It reveals what words often hide. Avoidants may not always know how to talk about their emotions. They may feel something deeply and still avoid naming it. They may care about someone and still become uncomfortable when asked to define the relationship. Because verbal clarity can feel intense, their feelings often appear through repeated actions instead. They may not say they think about you, but they remember details. They may not promise commitment, but they continue showing up. These patterns matter because they are difficult to fake over time. A single emotional moment can be misleading. Someone may become affectionate during loneliness, stress, or temporary emotional intensity. They may say things that feel meaningful, then disappear. That is why promises alone are not enough to understand attachment. Real connection is visible in what repeats. If someone keeps checking in, keeps returning after distance, keeps making room for you in their life, that pattern carries more truth than any speech. Behavior repeated over time. Reveals emotional priority. For avoidance, consistency can appear in subtle ways. They may send short messages regularly, notice when something feels off, or quietly help without being asked. It may not look dramatic. In fact, it often looks ordinary, but that is exactly what makes it significant. Avoidants usually protect their emotional energy. They are not naturally inclined to invest sustained attention unless the connection matters. Repeated effort means the relationship occupies emotional space in their mind. Patterns also reveal what someone does under discomfort. Avoidants may withdraw when closeness feels intense. They may need space, become quieter, or seem distant. But if they continue returning, re-engaging, and restoring contact, that return becomes part of the pattern. It shows the bond remains active despite their fear. Temporary distance matters less than repeated reconnection. This is why patterns should always outweigh promises. Promises describe intention. Patterns reveal reality. Anyone can speak in emotional moments, but sustained behavior shows where someone's attachment truly lives. With avoidance, this matters even more because words are often limited by why fear. Their actions become the most honest expression of what they feel. Watch how often they return, how consistently they show up, and whether they make space for you over time. In attachment, repeated choices reveal what spoken promises cannot. One of the clearest signs that an avoidant has developed real feelings is not found in what they say during emotional moments. It is found in what they do after they pull away. Many people focus on words because words feel direct. They listen for declarations, reassurance, or promises. But avoidants often struggle to communicate emotions clearly, especially when those emotions feel intense. Because of that, their words may be limited, inconsistent, or confusing. The stronger sign is often much quieter. How often they return to you even after withdrawing. Avoidants commonly create distance when emotions become difficult to manage. Closeness can trigger vulnerability, and vulnerability can trigger fear. They may disappear after meaningful conversations, become less responsive after intimacy, or seem emotionally unavailable right after connection deepens. To someone on the receiving end, this can feel like rejection. It may appear as though, the bond did not matter. But in many cases, the withdrawal is not about losing interest. It is about trying to regulate feelings that have become stronger than they expected. This is why return matters so much. If someone repeatedly steps back but continues finding their way back to you, that pattern reveals emotional significance. Returning requires intention. It means that even during distance, the connection remained active in their mind. They may not know how to stay consistently close, but they also cannot fully disconnect. Something keeps bringing them back. That repeated return often reveals attachment more honestly than anything they say. Avoidants rarely move toward emotional discomfort unless something matters to them. If they feel no connection, they often drift away and stay gone. They protect their space and do not usually re-enter emotionally complicated situations without reason. But when someone has become important, distance does not fully remove the attachment. They may leave to regain control, but the bond remains. That is why they reach out again, even if awkwardly. Sometimes it is a casual message. Sometimes they act as though nothing happened. The method may seem insignificant, but the return itself is meaningful. Words can also be misleading because avoidants may say things that reflect fear rather than truth. In moments of overwhelm, they may claim they need space, insist they are not ready, or minimize the connection. These statements may be sincere in that moment, but they do not always represent the full emotional reality. Their behavior over time often tells a deeper story. If they consistently reappear, re-engage, and rebuild contact, that pattern may reveal feelings they cannot easily admit. The strongest sign is not emotional speeches or dramatic promises. It is repetition. It is the person who withdraws, processes, and still chooses to return. That return shows the bond remained important even during fear. With avoidance, repeated reconnection is often the clearest evidence that the attachment is real, even when their words fail to say it.